The human brain struggles with a peculiar cognitive dissonance, watching footage of artillery strikes in Ukraine while learning that humanity lives in one of history's most peaceful eras. Both facts remain stubbornly true. Data from the Uppsala Conflict Data Program reveals that 2024 marked a historic peak in state-based conflicts, with 61 active conflicts across 36 countries. This is the highest number recorded since tracking began in 1946. 11 reached the threshold of war, causing at least 1,000 battle-related deaths annually. Yet, zoom out across centuries, and the proportion of humans dying in organized violence has declined dramatically. Nearly 160,000 people perished in organized violence during 2024, making it the fourth deadliest year since the 1994 Rwandan genocide. The wars in Ukraine and Gaza accounted for the majority of these deaths, with Ukraine seeing approximately 76,000 fatalities and Gaza recording around 26,000 deaths. These numbers shock the conscience, yet they pale against the industrial-scale slaughter of World War II. Research indicates that global military expenditure reached $2.7 trillion in 2024, a 9.4% increase, representing the steepest year-on-year rise since the Cold War ended. The world's 15 largest military spenders all increased their budgets simultaneously. The world stands at an inflection point where multiple trends converge, more conflicts occurring simultaneously, more money being spent on weapons, but still fewer deaths proportionally than previous generations endured. Trace nearly any contemporary conflict on a map, and a striking pattern emerges. The vast majority of armed conflicts rage in territories that experienced foreign occupation during the 20th century. The 1884 Berlin Conference carved Africa into territories ignoring ethnic, linguistic, and cultural boundaries, creating what researchers call one of colonialism's most problematic legacies. Today, over 100 active territorial disputes simmer across Africa alone. The Sahel region exemplifies this pattern, where jihadist insurgencies exploit weak governance structures inherited from colonial administrations that intentionally divided populations along tribal lines. Sudan's catastrophic civil war has displaced over 12 million people and created the world's largest hunger crisis, with over 30 million requiring assistance. Death tolls may reach 400,000 since fighting began in April 2023. Conflicts across Myanmar, Yemen, and parts of the Middle East follow fault lines established when empires collapsed. The Soviet Union's dissolution left behind contested borders and ethnic tensions that erupted decades later. Crimea's annexation in 2014 and Ukraine's full-scale invasion in 2022 represent the bloody consequences of imperial boundaries meeting post-imperial ambitions. Russia's attack marked the first war since World War II, where a major power attempted to conquer territory and subjugate another state. Amid global turbulence, one pattern holds remarkably steady. Democracies do not wage war against each other. This observation, first articulated by Immanuel Kant in 1795, has withstood over 2 centuries of rigorous testing. Studies demonstrate that the relationship between democracy and interstate peace remains statistically significant, even when controlling for proximity, wealth, and trade. Current global divisions confirm this pattern, with fault lines running between liberal states and authoritarian ones. Research shows that non-aligned democracies are less likely to fight each other than aligned non-democracies, suggesting that shared governance values matter more than strategic alliances. When conflicts arise between democratic countries, Their leaders recognize each other's political constraints and understand that wars would prove costly for both sides. This separation of powers constrains leaders from moving rashly toward war. However, this democratic peace comes with troubling caveats. Democracies prove willing to engage militarily with non-democratic states, and countries transitioning toward democracy often become more warlike during unstable transformation periods. Democratic backsliding threatens to reverse these gains, with fewer civil wars ending through diplomacy and more concluding through military victory or frozen stalemates that leave grievances unresolved. Europe is rearming at a pace not seen since the Cold War. EU member states increased defense spending from €218 billion in 2021 to €343 billion in 2024, with projections reaching €381 billion in 2025. Germany became Western Europe's largest military spender for the first time since reunification, allocating $88.5 billion, following its €100 billion special defense fund. Poland now dedicates over 4% of its GDP to defense, the highest proportion in NATO. China's official defense budget reached approximately $246 billion in 2025, though estimates of actual spending range from $314 billion to $471 billion. China's nuclear arsenal has expanded to approximately 600 warheads, potentially reaching 1,000 by 2030. The world has entered a multipolar configuration with at least 4 distinct power centers: the United States, China, a rearming Europe, and regional powers asserting their own spheres of influence. Russia's military spending surged 38% in a single year to an estimated $149 billion, representing 7% of its GDP. Ukraine allocated 34% of its GDP to defense, the highest military burden of any country globally. This arms buildup creates dangerous feedback loops where each nation's increased spending triggers responses from rivals, consuming resources that might otherwise address climate change, poverty, or disease. Humanity has not abolished war, but large-scale interstate conflict between major powers has become increasingly rare. The horrific death tolls in Ukraine, Sudan, and Gaza have not triggered cascading great power conflicts that characterized previous centuries. Civil wars remain the dominant form of armed conflict, often sustained by external powers, supplying weapons to opposing sides. The flow of foreign arms into Sudan from China, Russia, Turkey, and the UAE exemplifies how global rivalries fuel local catastrophes. Iran's support for proxy forces across the Middle East and Western support for Ukraine demonstrate that major powers increasingly fight through intermediaries rather than directly. For the 10th consecutive year, the Islamic State remained the deadliest non-state actor targeting civilians, responsible for approximately 3,800 deaths in 2024, primarily in Congo. Targeted violence against civilians increased by 31% compared to the previous year. What remains uncertain is whether current trends represent a temporary anomaly or a shift toward more dangerous times. The number of conflicts continues rising, even as individual conflicts become somewhat less deadly. Only 5 conflicts became inactive in 2024, the fewest since 2013. Tensions over Taiwan, disputes in the South China Sea, and border clashes between nuclear-armed neighbors create significant escalation risks. The statistics offer cold comfort to those living under bombardment, but they suggest international order has not collapsed entirely. Whether humanity repairs it before the next catastrophe unfolds remains this generation's defining question. As we've seen throughout this exploration, understanding complex global issues From escalating conflicts and military spending to the historical roots of territorial disputes, can feel overwhelming, but it's absolutely achievable with a structured approach. We've journeyed through data visualizations and step-by-step breakdowns, revealing how these interconnected factors shape our world today, highlighting patterns like the rarity of conflict between democracies and the concerning diversion of resources away from vital needs. It's clear that informed awareness is the first step towards constructive engagement. Thank you for watching. If you found this insightful, please give us a like and share your own perspectives or experiences in the comments below.